Hello, UK Crime Book Club, I hope. We have the absolutely gorgeous and talented Sophie Flynn with us to discuss the latest book, and I'm thrilled because I absolutely loved it. Um, do you want to introduce yourself, and I'll just check this is working,
Yes,
and tell us a little bit about the book? And if you have the cover, please feel free to show it off.
right next to me. Lovely. Hello, I'm Sophie Flynn. I'm the author of 4 books. My latest is What Stays Unsaid, which looks backwards to me, but probably will be to you as well. It is out on Thursday, the 23rd of May. It is about 2 best friends who are whisked away on a surprise weekend in the kind of gloomy Dartmoor Hills. They are in for a surprise. What they don't know is their friends have set up a surprise joint hen do for the both of them because they are both due to get married. The big problem being they actually haven't spoken for quite a while, and they don't really want to let their friends in on what has gone on between them and why they're not talking. So we followed 5 of them over the weekend with various twists and turns of things going wrong. And obviously we've got stormy weather in Dartmoor Hills and some fun little hen do outings.
And what could possibly go wrong sticking a few people together on a hen do in the middle of nowhere?
Well, exactly.
I am just checking that we are actually working, and I believe we are.
Okay.
So we shall see if we have people watching. So fingers crossed.
Okay.
I absolutely love this book. I laughed, I cried, I remembered why I don't have big groups of friends to go on holiday with. It's always this nice idea, isn't it? Wouldn't it be lovely if there were 10 of us, 10 women who are all friends and really close and all kind of in and out of each other's lives, a bit like Friends, which you
Yeah.
kind of mention in the book. And wouldn't it be lovely, except it never is.
No, it's the dream, isn't it? It's kind of what everyone wants. And I've been on a lot of hen dos and with various kind of outcomes. And I think it's such like an interesting concept of it's exactly what you dream about when you're younger, growing up having these really close friends. You stay friends from when you're school right through to being adults, but it isn't always the healthiest relationships when you've never really kind of gone outside that friendship. And especially like obviously it's a thriller, so there's things happened in their past which have made them closer, but not necessarily for good reasons.
Mm. We do actually. It seems that I believe we are actually live and pinned in the book club, in the UK Crime Book Club. I have comments. You're not going to be able to see them though, unfortunately, because they are on a different post. Kaz is saying, "How have I got this working?" Do share later, Kaz. I don't know how I got it working. Is the short version, but I can't see the comments. But it won't matter because I can see them on Facebook on another page. So. Sarah Blackburn loved the book.
Oh, lovely, thank you.
So she must have had an advance copy.
Yes, I know.
Have you had any feedback from the advance copies yet?
Yeah, so I'm always really nervous when it goes out on early review because it often goes on NetGalley, which if anyone doesn't know is kind of an early review site. They send out kind of digital arcs, and that's the real like moment where you think, oh God, I'm really good at not really thinking other people are going to read it until it goes on NetGalley, and then you get your first review. But so far, touch wood, they've actually been really positive reviews, which I wasn't sure whether to expect because they're not necessarily the nicest characters. They're quite tricky, and I think like
Well,
especially
isn't that why they're great?
well, I think so, but it can provoke a reaction of, oh no, I didn't like any of these women. And that was my worry with the book, was would people say, oh, I don't like them, therefore I don't want to read it.
Oh, that's really interesting because I do like them.
Oh no, I
And
like
yeah, the further things go. Now we were talking about how difficult this book is to discuss beforehand, so let me see if I can do this without spoiling anything. The further things go, you can see why everybody's acting the way that they're acting, and there's other things going on, but they're all kind of privy to their own little bit of each bit of this puzzle that's solved in the book.
yeah.
I think I covered it without saying anything.
I really like writing women who are more honest. I think like it's because one of the things that I was particularly worried about was that they're very competitive with each other, and they're very, particularly two of the characters are quite obsessed with weight and looks. And that obviously, like, that's not my view. I'm not comparing myself to every woman and thinking it's great if they look a bit rubbish. But I mean, I have when I was younger, definitely, and with friendships, if you've got friendships that aren't always that healthy, I think there really is that competitive streak. And as much as like people don't necessarily want to admit they've done that, I think that is more common than you probably say. Like they're a little bit younger than me, the group, but there is that very competitive nature, and they're always measuring themselves against each other. And I was a bit worried about that, of how people would take that, and hoping it's not my personal view of how I see other women. But I think it is quite prevalent in friendship groups, particularly when you've had friends for a long time from when you were younger.
Yeah, I think it's very rare that I would ever read something and think, oh, that must be the author's view.
Yeah, that's
so
good.
yeah, I think I read too many things. You know, when you get to know people and then you read what they've written and you think,
Yeah.
there's none of your personality in that character at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
The other thing I really loved was, because it's written dual timeline, you show kind of present day on the hen weekend, and you go back in time as well to when they were teenagers. And I love the fact that when we are looking back, there were so many things that just made me chuckle. You know, kind of Dream Mat Foundation, for one. And there's just loads of little things that you just think, oh my word, yeah, that's how it was. So when all of the characters were acting in certain ways, and when some were being a bit catty about each other and being a bit pleased that they looked a bit better, that was just kind of, even if you weren't that person, you know somebody who was that person at the time.
Yeah.
You know, and I've got teenagers, you know, I've seen it through different stages of my life. You
Yeah.
see people and how they act, and you brought all of that kind of full circle in the book, but you really emphasized different parts of different people's personalities as well. You covered the whole, you know, gambit really well.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. I really wanted to kind of, because I think one of the things that happens in families and in really close friendship groups is you get labeled, you're the shy one, or you're the clever one, you're the pretty one. And it doesn't really matter if you, no matter how much you grow, you're kind of stuck in that role. And I think that's why friendships can feel quite toxic if you've had them a long time, because people have got their mind set about people. And there's a lot of judgments. Like I really liked writing Georgia because she was so different when she was a teenager. But Alex particularly wouldn't treat her like that. To Alex, she would always be the kind of not cool one, the one who wasn't like the leader. And you can see the like how much that angers Georgia now. And I think that like you do find that if you've had friendships when you're younger and then they meet your kind of friends that you've made as adults, there's often such a mismatch between who the people you grew up with think you are and who the people who met you as an adult think you are.
The other thing that I think happens, and you see it somewhat in this book, is that people come back into your life and you immediately revert to the person you were when you knew them before.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have recently seen someone, and it was like being 15 again, from the, you know, the last, or 16, the last time we really spent a lot of time together. But right in that moment, seeing her was just, it was so lovely. And
Yeah.
it was just life that got in the way, you know, you just kind of drift off and do other things, and we still message each other from time to time. But it was, you just revert back to this person that you were, that you're nothing like now, which is quite funny as well.
I think that happens with family as well, doesn't it? Like when when my husband goes back, when we go up to stay with his parents, he's like a teenager again. I'm like, pushes food around the plate and not eat. And I'm like, what are you doing? But I think it's just, you kind of just, those are the behaviours that you're used to. And I think that's the same with like school friendship groups. Yeah, and I think they are like, when you see all these women together in the book, they are quite petty. They're very childish in the way they are as adults. But I think if you took them outside of that, in their jobs, in their day-to-day lives, they wouldn't be. But in this particular scenario, I think Henry's really bad for that, because it's something that you're just putting all these people who wouldn't usually spend that much time together in this confined little group and asking them to like relive all of their kind of relationship in front of each other. And that like level of competitiveness, I think, really goes up in Henry, because you're constantly being asked to prove, like, are you a bridesmaid, or are you just a guest? Are you a day guest? Are you an evening guest? And do you know the like brides to be husbands, and all these little games, and so many of the games are really saying to everyone else, look how good friends we are, look how well we know each other. And that's such a great setting for a novel, because obviously you've got so many tensions, but living the Hindus often as well.
I like the fact that you kept slipping everybody into and out of the comfort zones.
Mm.
So kind of you'll throw something out, and I can't say any of the things that are thrown out there. We can talk a little bit. There's a storm,
Mm.
and we can talk the things that you would expect when there's a storm.
Mm-hmm.
The lights go out. There's no phone signal. There's the winds howling and the rain's doing all kinds of things, and people are freaking out because the lights are flickering. And that's where they literally slip back into not the person who organised it in charge. It's just that they all slip into their roles of who would look after who in
Yeah.
that situation, no matter what else is going on. I really like the fact that you made us feel like we knew everybody in the book really deeply.
That's good.
You did a lot in 90,000 words. You have covered a lot.
Mm. That's interesting because it's my first, like, I've had dual point of view novels, but only two, and there's 5 in this, and that was off a lot because you suddenly start thinking, oh, how am I going to get all of this personality across in such a short space of time? Because 5 point of views and then another timeline, you don't have that much time with some of the characters. So I think that was quite fun to write as well, and just trying to think, how do we get the most amount of personality over in a short space of time.
Sarah said we can talk about Dartmoor. So
Yeah.
why Dartmoor to start with?
That was I loved that one, but it's so creepy. Like I was in uni in Devon for a year, and I've spent quite a lot of time in Devon. I was down in Cornwall as well, but I think Dartmoor is just this kind of like little place of its own. We went. My friend booked a holiday there once. He never books anywhere. Like I always book everywhere. And he booked a holiday, an Airbnb in, I think it's Princeton or Princeton. I'm not sure how you say it. It's where the prison is, which comes up in the book. And I remember driving down in the night and just could not get over how long we were driving down these tiny, tiny single track dark lanes with all the trees over the top. You can't see anything out, no phone signal. And we were like, because me and my husband live quite rurally, so we're used to not being able to, like, there's no like delivery services or stuff like that. But Dartmoor was like a whole other level. Like the nearest place we could get any food was a half an hour drive away, so a 1 hour round trip, like a takeaway. And it's got this real like isolated feel to me. I felt very trapped. I liked it a lot, but I also felt very trapped. And then you've got the difference of the moors, which are completely open, but quite creepy because they're so open. So for me, it was just this real like juxtaposition of kind of going in through these tiny little lanes. Not, if you needed to go out quickly, you're not getting in your car and speeding 100 miles down the lanes because you can't. But then also you could run out for miles and not see another person. So I just think it's a really interesting place, and I love the prison aspect of it because it's got such a great history. And I really love the town that we stayed in with the prison. It was such a quirky, odd, beautiful place that just had this history of kind of all these awful things happening, but then they're not really anymore. And I found that quite interesting. Of people, you think of Dartmoor prison as kind of all the stories of all the murders and people escaping murders out on the moors, but actually it's not anymore. There really is a prison museum you can go and look. There is prisoners' artwork that you can go and look at, and the tour I wrote in the book where they go and see all the different prison cells. Me and my friends have done that with the dog. So I love writing about places I've been. I find it really hard to write if I've not physically been there, and I've exhausted where I live in all my books.
So I didn't know that you could actually go to Dartmoor prison for a tour.
Yeah,
which is fascinating. I think it's hilarious that these are one of the activities that were chosen by the party of women. They all had 3 of them kind of had an insight into what was going to happen, and 2 of them run like a surprise weekend. But Dartmoor prison, yeah, I think I'd be intrigued to go and look. So is it actually a Class C open prison as well as a tour, or have you kind of combined a bit of fiction there?
I mean, as far as I remember, it is. If someone might correct me, when I last looked, it was. The museum isn't quite like in the book. I think it sounds bigger than it is, or at least it was when I visited probably 5 years ago. It's very small, and there's not like this huge gallery like in the book. But there is. You go see all the different cells. You see the kind of there was a thing of like weapons made, and you see the prison uniforms, what they used to have, which was very fun because the most modern prison uniform was basically exactly how my friend TK was dressed at the time, and he was stood next to a model, and I think he could stay in here. But it's creepy and odd. Like you get this really odd feeling walking around because you're kind of like, oh, it's a bit of fun, and you're like, oh, real people have been here, and I'm kind of a tourist standing in a cell, being like, ha ha, and it's odd. You're not sure how you're supposed to experience it. And then the bit where they were making kind of the art, there was lots of like stones painted, and I remember little gnomes and things like that, and just being like, this feels strange to me. It's quite a strange place. I don't know if anyone else has ever visited it, but
I have not. It is on my list now, though. I spent a lot of time in Devon as a kid, but I don't think I've been to Dartmoor. So when you are thinking about settings, you said you've exhausted everywhere local to you. What are you going to do now?
Well, so my next book is actually quite local to me. That's kind of got two main settings because we've got the main protagonist is in the police, and I wanted to set it in the. I used to be a police press officer, and my sister is still in this police force, so I wanted to set in the police force I knew quite well. So, and I've also lived in this town, so that's going to be set in Stratford upon Avon, unless I change my mind because I'm still right.
Lovely.
And then there's another location which is down in Weston-super-Mare because I really like writing about. I think Weston's really interesting as well because it's almost like stepping back in time. A lot of the place, there's also quite a lot of poverty there, but it's also got then this really fun arcade sort of like joyous vibe with quite a dark side that people don't necessarily think about. I really like writing about those sorts of places. I've written a book based in Cornwall as well, and I think I really like that juxtaposition of a fun holiday beachy sort of place when actually those places do have quite a lot of deprivation, a lot of social issues that you don't really think about unless you know about them. So that's where the next one will be.
It's really funny that Weston-super-Mare is where I went for my honeymoon. We just got in the car and drove. That's where we ended up. So I went to see my friend in Bristol and had a few days in Weston-super-Mare, and it was not anything like I pictured it was going to be, other than that it had a beach.
Yeah. We used to drive there a lot as kids. Like that was because I grew up near Stratford-upon-Avon, and that was one of the nearest places you could get in the car, drive to the beach, and come home in the day. And the beaches are quite muddy. The beaches, aren't they? And it's quite like, yeah. I mean, I really love it, and we would often drive.
Yeah, we did.
To Weston. I think it's really sweet place. And I have a friend who grew up there, but I think it's interesting. It's not just this kind of like beautiful beach, and it's an odd place. I quite like odd places. I think maybe that's it.
Yeah, I like an odd place.
Yeah, I'm really hoping there's no one's getting horribly offended by me saying they're odd. I think it's just not like, it's not boring, is it? There's lots of things to write about and different characters you can see placed there. Yeah, I feel I should write about London because all the big books are set in London, but I don't really have any interest or like connection with London. I feel like there's so many books set in London. I like setting
There's enough books set in London. Let's explore the rest of the world a little bit. When you set out writing this, you have got, as we said, a dual timeline. It's a weekend getaway, and you've got 5 points of view. A lot to juggle. Did you have to kind of write more than you thought and then kind of cut things out to make it work? Did you just kind of go with it, or did you have a very firm idea of how you were going to factor in these 5 women?
I always underwrite, so I usually write about 80,000 word drafts and then have to write up, which I find really easy in editing because it's easier than cutting. But this is, I think, actually, I can't remember. I think this is my longest book. I think it's ended up about 96,000 words, which for me is quite long. And I think that was because I had so many of the different points of view. I did do a lot of swapping over from, I'd originally written one in like Alex's point of view, and actually worked. And my editor said a really clever thing to me. The point of view should always be from whoever's got most to lose in that scene. Whoever's got the highest stakes, that should be the point of view you're telling it. So there was like 3 or 4, maybe 5 chapters where I completely changed the point of view, and it was actually really fun because it's not easy to do, but it's not hard because you already know what's happened. You're just then seeing it from a totally different person's point of view. So I actually did enjoy doing that. But yeah, it was, I can't remember how well I planned it. I think I planned it out quite well, but also you have a really good structure with a hen do, because you've kind of got this, you know what's going on, you know the sort of things that will happen, and you have to balance it around that. It was the shortest spanning book I've ever written, I think. So I think my first was over a few days as well, actually, but it didn't need to be, and I found that quite hard. I just made it hard for myself, whereas this, it was nice knowing actually by the time we get to, because it's Friday to, is it Friday to Monday, I think the hen do is, so you've got that really close.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm trying to remember.
I know there's a Saturday and a Sunday in it.
Yeah, I think it's
because I remember seeing the days at the top of those bits.
Yeah, I think they arrive on Friday. So I did have to like plan out exactly hour by hour. Like, how realistic is it? Are they actually, could they get all this stuff done? Because I'm quite bad for making people drive all over and then thinking there's just no way you're going to be back and forth between those places.
I really do love the idea of this kind of remote place where you bring everybody to, and then you've got the one who's really gung-ho and wants to kind of, these are the activities and super fun. That was the word that I kept reading and thinking, oh, she's one of those. She's super fun. Yay. I think I would be the one also suggesting, can we just stay and sit and read for a little bit? I'm done with, don't mind a hike. A hike's fine.
Yeah.
But there are certain other games they played that I could kind of feel myself rolling my eyes thinking, I'm too old for that.
Yeah, I think I've been on, I counted, it's either 10 or 12 hen do's.
Wow.
And most of them were over a year or two. But so now I don't really, if I've got any friends watching who aren't married yet, I will come, but I don't really want to go anymore. I feel like I've reached the age where I'm like, no, I'm done. Like, it's so much forced fun. And I think you can do it for a little bit. You go to a few, and I remember my first hen do I went to was my sister's, and I was responsible for organising it with her best friend, and I think I was 26. But I say I was responsible for organising it, but my sister's also a massive control freak, so she was like, this is where I want to go, this is who I want to invite, this is how much I want to spend, here's all the activities. And there was like so many activities. I remember having like 5 minutes to get changed in between them, and it was like 1 minute we'd be sea kayaking, then we were going clubbing, and she's absolutely, it was a great but like now I'd be like, I'm not doing that, that's ridiculous, I'm not going from here to here to here. But you and I think that's funny about hen do's, because no other weekend would you plan hour by hour what you're going to do, and suddenly you, like, I've been on hen do's where there's like 15 people of ages ranging from like early 20s through to like the grandmas of the group, and yet we're all on this schedule where it's like 7 p.m. you get down for the photo. And I was on once and we were hiding in our bedrooms, just 5 minutes downtime, get a knock on the door, you're missing the photos, everyone's in the room for the photos, you've got to have your photos. And it's just that, I cannot keep up this level of happiness for that long.
Is that where the inspiration came from for a couple of scenes where people just lie down and realise how comfy the bed is and want to stay there, and then something happens and they have to move?
Yeah, I think you just have that moment where you're just like I'm really good if I went on a hen do, I would be fine. Like, everyone would think I was having the best time, I'll get really stuck in, and then as soon as the door's closed, I'm just like, we'll just sit in silence. Like, cannot keep doing this, and then I'm out again, because it's kind of like acting, isn't it? I think a lot of it is you feel like you're performing, you're on stage, and
you don't want to bring everybody else down if you're not really feeling it, so you maybe go a bit overboard and try and hype everybody up, and everybody probably just wants pajamas on by that point.
And there is always a night, like I think every hen do I've been to, it's the second night where they've got all this stuff arranged, but everyone's going, I'm done. Had a great night the first night, and the second night I just want to be in my pajamas, and that it always ends up in a bit of a funk, because it's like the bride, I mean, even on my hen do, and I was determined not to be a crazy hen do person. I remember my second night, everyone was knackered, and I was like, oh no, is everyone bored? Like, have I really failed? But it's like, no, because you just don't want to do two nights. Well, I don't, because I'm old and boring, but you don't want to do 2 nights in a row. You can't keep up that energy. But again, that then becomes, you usually get the competitive friend who's like, I'm the really good friend, I'll be really kind of energetic, I'll be the one doing the party. And then you get the one who can't be bothered rolling their eyes, and then they're always at each other's throats, and very fun.
Sounds like the two sides of me, actually.
Yeah.
Either really fun or really just want to close the door and sit down with a cup of tea and a book. That's it. There's no in between. I am one or the other. Trying to think how many hen do's I've been on. I think I've been on one, but my friend had
Oh,
two
wow.
different nights that we did different things on. And it was really fun, but I didn't have a hen do. I can't think of anything worse than being the
Really?
person in the middle of, the centre of attention with the. No. I
No.
probably want to take over as well.
Yes,
It
yeah,
keeps me busy, keeps me out of trouble arranging things.
I didn't have anything to do with mine. But my sister is massive control freak, and I knew she would. I said to her, I just want it quite low, and we did go to like a farmhouse in Somerset. And actually, a lot of the things we did are very similar to that. But I wanted it quite low key. But it's hard to do low key. It's just hard to, because other people have expectations of what they think a hen do should be. And it just kind of, I find that with weddings in general, it just grows and grows and grows, and all the kind of things you don't think about yourself, you think you're this super low key, I don't care sort of person, and the next minute you're like being, my mum on my wedding tried to talk me into hiring like a VW van photo booth, and I remember being like, what? I don't need a V. It's only £600. I was like, £600? Like, why would I need that? But I just think weddings and hen dos and all of it just make people go a little bit mad, that you lose sight of any rational behaviour.
Um, Sarah's asked, do you have a must-buy author as soon as they have a book out? We could literally sit and talk about your book for about 3 weeks, and I think we can do it without discussing things that would be a spoiler. But yeah, Sarah wants to know, do you have a must-buy author? Kaz calls them her shut up and take my money authors. You see the name and that's it. You just pick it up.
I mean, I do have, so I always read my, like, one, it's a lot of, I always feel like you have to name all your friends as well. The people that aren't my friends, who I also just like Gillian McAllister's books, like you just know they're really going to be amazing. Lisa Jewell, I find it hard to read Lisa Jewell books because I'm like, God, you're so good. Like, you're just incredible. And the plot,
her writing terrifies me. She's so good, it's insane.
Yeah, they're just so good. Claire Douglas, I feel like that as well, just like incredible. But I also, I do read stuff outside of crime as well. I love Marion Keyes. I'll read anything she writes.
I think she's got the best Twitter feed in the world.
She's so funny, isn't she? I adore her.
Her and Claire Allen, and is it Lisa Sell? There's like a handful of Twitter accounts that'll, if I'm having a bad day, they're the ones I'll go and look at.
Yeah.
So you did say I could ask you this before we went live. So you have characters named after real people, not necessarily based on real people.
Yes. So not on purpose, but I work at Jericho Writers, and what my head of marketing is called Becca Day, who's an author you guys might know in the group. And we have a character called Becca. And then she manages the lovely Katie Day, who are not sisters. I hired them on the same day, but they are not related. We were not sure if they were going to be, because I hadn't really realised they got the same surname. And suddenly someone said, are they sisters? I was like, God, I hope not. I've got no idea. If they are, they haven't mentioned it. So then we've got a Katie and a Becca in the book. I am really bad for using friends and family names. I don't necessarily do it on purpose. I just don't realise until after I've done it. And by that point, I find it really hard to name people. And I often do, like, I did have to change a few names in this because they were too close to each other, which is how Becca got her name. She was originally Abigail, but we had Alex and Abigail and everyone.
Yeah, I don't think, no, she's definitely called Becca. She's not an Abigail in my head at
Really?
all.
Yeah. I'm used to her as that now.
Yeah.
It was Abby. I think it was Abby. Now I'm saying it, I'm doubting myself, but Abby and Alex.
Too much. Yeah,
too much. And I'm really bad for that. I will call someone like Hannah and Anna and then be like, oh, that doesn't work. But only after I've written the entire book. So yeah, I think like characters are always based on real people to a point. Like, I like to take, I think it's impossible not to. You're always basing like little personality traits, but there's not one character you say, oh, this is this person or this is this person, but there's bits of people's personalities which I find interesting, especially as like a friendship group, because you do tend to have those sorts of characters. You've got like the organizer, you've got the really nice quiet one, you've got the sporty kind of confident one, But I quite like taking bits of one person and mixing them with another person.
Yeah.
That's how I try and get away from basing it to one person. And like what isn't like them, which would make it a slightly more interesting character. But yeah, my sister said to me, "This means a lot like your." We didn't have any issues on my hen do. She's like, "It reads a lot like your hen do," and I was like, "That's not ideal."
I mean, the from what you've said, there are aspects of your hen do, but I hope it isn't really true crime written as fiction.
No, it's not. I think I do use a lot of my life in my books, like a lot. This one probably the least. But like my last book was very, very based on things that happened to me in very similar scenarios. So people who know me will say, "Oh, I know who that is," but they'll often get the wrong person. Or it'll be funny, they'll whoever they don't like, they'll say, "Oh, that's that person, isn't it?" And you're like,
that must give you a bit of insight into how your friends and family feel about each other.
Yeah, especially when they say like, "Oh, that I think that one's you," and I'm like, "That's not me. That I didn't think that was like me." In this one, no one said to me, "I think that's you," which is good, because that was my worry with it, was like when you've got a group of friends and you've got some who aren't very nice, like which one would be me? And none of them, no one said that, which is good, because
nobody's giving you like knowing looks around each other like they do in the book.
I don't know, maybe.
Can I ask what you are currently working on? Can I also say, before we went live, we were talking about whether you would remember any of this. Gold Star.
Good. I've had a really busy day, and I was very like, right, let's get prepped. What do I remember about the book? It is, I mean, it's not actually that long, because I'm with Hera as a publisher, and with quite tight schedules. So I think I finished, like, my final proofread of this was February, maybe January.
This year?
It's probably January. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not it's not that long ago at all, but it feels a long time ago, because like I finished the first draft I handed into them was September last year. So you're kind of, by the time it gets to page proofreads, I don't know, my mind isn't in it by that point anymore. It's just kind of ticking, have I done a comma in the right place? Am I not? So it feels like quite a long time ago that I did write it. So I'm glad I remember this.
I have no idea. I asked you what you were working on.
Oh, so I'm working on, I don't have a title, well, I have a working title for it yet, but I don't think it's the title we're going to go with, but it's about, so two women, is that a spoiler? I haven't got any marketing for it yet. We'll just say it. I'm sure it's not. Two women who have the same name, who know each other via misdirected emails. So one of them gets the other emails quite consistently. So they've formed a friendship over kind of getting each other emails over kind of 5 years. And then one of them goes missing and the other tries to find them. And yeah, that again, I've just stolen from my life. So there is another Sophie Flynn, who over like 10 years has got loads of my emails. And to complicate matters, there is another Sophie Flynn and another Sophie Flynn, who neither of us know who they are, but we also get their emails. And it's fascinating, because it's like you pick up about other people. Like, she knows so much about my life. Like, she's had like my mortgage documents sent to her, like doctor stuff, because I probably shouldn't say.
Oh my word!
Because I've got one letter different in my name to her name, but people don't hear it even when you write out the email. They don't see the letter. It goes to her, and then she had seen a chain and seen my original email and forwarded it to me, but that was over 10 years ago. And I thought that's quite fun. I've always wanted to write a story about it, because I just think it's fun. Like, we got sent an email, she forwarded it to me, an email about like a family argument, and it was like, oh, Sophie, please do come, and Donut wants to see you, and Marjorie won't be unhappy anymore. I'm just going to get in the van and drive to Nebraska. Please forgive me. And I was like, this is fascinating. There was once like a private plane hired, and she was like, is this yours? I was like, I wish this was mine. I wish I was hiring a private plane, but this is another Sophie Flynn. So you kind of get all these like bits and pieces of someone's life via email, but not a whole picture. And so yeah, it's just about that really. So you've got, and one of them is I think, unless I change her, she's in the police, in the control and command center, so kind of managing the police cars and who goes where, who gets what for, which is what my sister's done. which I just think is a really, really interesting job. So I wanted to write something about that. I find the police really interesting, but I'm not hugely interested in writing like police procedural from like an officer's point of view. Too much too much research. So that kind of like satisfies that need to want to write something a bit more policey without all the difficult bits.
Do you plan on writing not police procedurals, obviously, but other genres than a psychological thriller?
I would love to write something funny.
Like you are funny. This is the thing, you are funny.
I was like, that's what I want. That's what I want. Because yeah, I love funny books. I don't know, I'm not saying I'm funny, but I like the idea of being able to write something funny. And like I love the books I write. And then sometimes when I read something like Marion Keaton, you come away and you're just like, God, I just feel so happy and good and really uplifted. I think because this is the one I'm writing now is my 5th psychological thriller. It might be nice to do something very, very different, but I don't know, because whenever I've tried to write anything a bit more uplifting, always turns quite dark. Because like the idea for this book could have been uplifting, and the idea for the email book could have been very uplifting. 2 women sharing a name, going on a quest to find each other, and yeah, I always end up making someone die. I don't really know why, so I'm not sure if I will or not. I think I'd probably find it hard, but who knows.
It just really makes me laugh because there are not many authors who have come on and not said that.
Really?
Oh, that's like, I've tried to write somebody else, but there always ends up with a body on page 2.
I don't know what it is.
You're all getting the darkness out on the page, and I'm sure the world unites and thanks you for that. You're not putting the carnage out there, you are putting it out as a book that we can take with us and just kind of, I'd say no real lasting impact, but this book I think is going to have a real and lasting impact on me. There were bits that made me sob.
Oh, that's nice. Sad, but like I think it's really like when someone says that, you're like, oh really? Because obviously you've written, I know you see authors saying, oh, I'm sobbing at my own work. I've never had that. I think you're writing it and it's quite, I don't know. So when someone says it, I'm always really taken aback that that's happened, but in a nice way. Like it's obviously a compliment.
I can't help but visualize this as something on, I know there are other streaming platforms, but a Netflix thing. I watch a lot on Netflix, and I can see this, just this farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, and these women turn up, and then all of these things happen. And you've just got to think that you've written something that really works for a budget. It's a very smart thing to do. And they can do a storm, they can add in CGI or go up to somewhere where there really would be a storm one weekend. I thought, can't even talk about that. There were things that I thought were very, very, very clever. Like, I can always tell when my husband knows I'm enjoying something because I make certain noises or kind of I'll say things and he'll be like, okay, she's enjoying this.
Ah, that's nice. That's like when I started writing, that was honestly, I've been such a huge reader. My mum and my dad and my sister, all of big reading family. And I just like loved the idea of doing something that someone just did for like pleasure, and just be like, when people would tag me and stuff on Instagram and they're like, oh, nice Saturday morning, and I'm just like, that's incredible to me that I'm your entertainment for Saturday morning, and that someone kind of like, I think because for me books have always been like, you can have a crap day, you can have loads of stuff going on, open a book and you're in a different world. And I've always loved that. That's for me, like, it feels really magical to actually be able to create that and have conversations. This is my 4th book, so I should be used to it, but to have conversations with the people who've read the book and like will repeat things back to me. I'm still like, wow, you actually like, something from my head, I created a world and you read it and understood it. It's still like mad to me, really, and like really fun. I think that's like in the cycle of kind of getting a book out, this is the bit that's really nice when you start getting messages from readers. Like someone messaged me yesterday saying they just read my book in Malaysia and they were leaving it in the hotel in Malaysia. Not this book, actually, my last one. I was like, I've never been to Malaysia. I was like, I love that so much, and you don't know me, never met you. She'd never read any of my books before, and she just found Instagram, messaged me. And I was like, that's really cool. And I think like the communities you get with it, like your group is huge. You can't believe how many people are in this group, and just every day just talking about books they love. And I always read the post, I'm like, that's incredible. That like of all the things we could be doing now, people are still reading books is pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely love the group. I've got to say, just the amount of joy I get from it could feel very prescribed, you know, interviews are set up and this is the book you will read for this, but it's so exciting because I just get to see what comes next.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have to really think about what I'm going to be reading. I just get to pick up the next book. And
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. And there's such a wealth of extraordinary authors. It's the best thing, it really is. We had a comment from Barbara Copperthwaite is really looking forward to reading the book.
Oh, bless her.
Who also writes under Barbara Haverstock.
Yes, are you interviewing her?
I'm not, unfortunately. It's Karen. Karen's going to be interviewing Barbara, so I'm excited to watch that. Leslie was saying she loves an emotionally intense book. Leslie, you would whip through this book. Leslie loves really kind of fast-paced, intense kind of. I think she'd love this. I really do. So yeah, this has got your name written all over it, Leslie, definitely. And it's out on the 23rd.
23rd, yeah. So is that next week? I'm just looking at my calendar up above me. Yes, next week, which has come really quick actually. It felt ages ago. Suddenly it was like, oh, it's May. The book's out.
So Sarah had asked earlier about if you're going to be at any festivals, but before I ask you that, are you doing anything for Publication Day?
Do you know what? I always do something, and this year I'm probably on the actual day. I'm not sure if I am, but I have got the day off after. So there's a bookshop. So I live in Morton in Marsh in the Cotswolds. We don't have a bookshop in Morton anymore, sadly, but we've got one in Stow on the Wold up the road. I actually don't know how to say it. I'm going to put it Borzy. It's Borzoi. It's an amazing bookshop, really lovely. And they're going to have some copies for me to sign. So I'm going to go in there. I've got my sister and my mum and dad off, one of my sisters, and we're going to go for lunch and cocktails with me on the Friday. So that'll be really nice. I did have a quite big book launch for my second book, which was so much fun. We rented out the town hall where I live, and opened it up to the public by basically saying you get free wine if you come, which was, if anyone's ever thinking about doing a book launch, just do that. It was amazing because my friend Anna, who runs events for me at work, sold all the books. So she was manning the book station. I was just floating around with Prosecco. Someone from Hera came, and then loads of people from the public came, which I was amazed at because I kind of rent this big hall and think, God, I hope someone comes. And it was packed, I think, because we gave them free wine. And I'm in the Cotswolds on Thursday night. There wasn't a lot to do. So I would like to do that again, but just haven't had the time at the moment. One day I will again offer everyone free wine and see if they show up.
Will you be manning social media on the day?
Yes, I am actually at work on the day, but we'll be fine. I work for Jericho Writers, a writing company. So I've never worked my publication day, but we're very understanding of people having deadlines and a focus being wholly on books on certain days. So I will be on social media because it's always fun. I got myself into when my first book came out, I did a picture where I've got me lying on a pile of books. And I've recreated it for every publication. Usually I'm off, so I could just like float around. And now I'm like, how am I going to manage to do that? I'm going to have to do it ahead of time, I think. But I'm kind of regret doing that in a way. Because but if I don't do it for this book, it'll be like, oh, he doesn't like that book very much. But I just a lot of energy. I just have a lot more energy.
One of the things that made me laugh is that with the setting, you are all ruining my romantic notion of living in a cabin by a lake or a nice house in the middle of the woods somewhere, or just kind of, it all sounds like a really nice idea until probably you get there and things start going wrong.
Yeah. So I went in March. Me and some writer friends rented a really, really beautiful house in the Malvern Hills, really rural, like down a single track lane, unbelievable house. And one of my friends writes uplit, and one works in TV, and one writes kind of like historical stuff. So no one writes thrillers. And I was like saying, like, definitely going to get murdered here. And they were like, why would you think that? And I was like, surely you're thinking that. Like, we've got an all glass house out onto the hills where there is nobody there. We've got the closest neighbour is like a 10-minute walk. Like, surely you're thinking it's likely for women in a house. They were like, think you need to stop reading so all right, fine. Like, I just think like that's where my brain always goes. But I do also say, I don't know if my mum's watching, she probably is. And my mum brought me up to basically if I was gonna get murdered all the time. She still does. She will text me being like, if she hears anything's happened anywhere, she went, yeah, I've heard there was a stabbing in Northampton. I'm like, that's literally got nothing to do with me. Brought me up with a real fear. Yeah. You always think I'm going to get killed in every situation. So maybe that's why.
See, now your mum says the things that I think but don't say.
Yeah, that's probably healthier. I say to her, what's wrong with you? Why do you think that? And she doesn't say it to my sisters. I said, I was talking to her about it earlier. She said, it's because I'm your favourite. She's like, it's because you're the youngest. I was like, no, it's because I'm your favourite.
One of the things with my mum is she will not read anything that's dark at all. So I can give her cozy crime.
Right.
And she's been very happy with that. But anything that's got, no, she just shudders at the thought of it.
Really?
So she'll watch the interviews sometimes and I'll say, do you think you'll read that? No. My
mum's read all my books. She does read quite a lot of thrillers actually. But she doesn't watch, she just watched Baby Reindeer. And I was like,
I've started it.
I really liked it, but it's very dark for my mum. And I kept saying to her, I don't think you should be watching this. She's like, I'll be fine. She actually did enjoy it. But I was like, it's quite explicit for you. But she was fine with it. But yeah, my older sister Nikki like absolutely speed reads through thrillers. She is like, every book that comes out in Tesco, she's got it as soon as it comes out. She's read it in a day, and she's passed it on to me and my sisters, and we all read them. So she's like the biggest reader of the family. But in that kind of way, she probably doesn't spend loads of time like pre-ordering, going into Waterstones and doing the whole like I'm a writerly sort of like. But she'll just everything. If I say, "Oh, this book's coming out," I've read it. I've got that two for $5 in Tesco. I love the I've read it. You can have it if you want.
I think with Baby Reindeer, what's put me off, and I keep going back to it, but I don't like things that make me feel cringy. You know, if there's something happening that's making me cringe on somebody else's behalf, I can't stand it.
Husband can't.
So I think that's what it is that's putting me off.
I had to cover my eyes a lot because I was just like, this is so horribly embarrassing for you that yeah, my husband won't. When we love watching Love Island, but he will literally get a pillow and put it on his face when they do anything remotely cringy, and I'll just go ah. What do you care about it? Yeah,
don't know. It's just one of those things, you know, when you feel a certain way, you think I don't like that feeling.
Yeah,
so you just stop. So I think I've watched about 2/3 of the first episode.
Oh, okay. I mean,
so I'm really kind of nowhere yet. And then I keep thinking I'll just watch a couple of minutes and just see how I get on, and then turning it off again. So I think the only reason I've persevered this long is because so many people have been like, oh, you know, I've really enjoyed it. It was horrifying, but it was brilliant. It was this, that, and the other, and people recommending it. So I kind of have stuck with it, but I think I might be done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't enjoyed as. I'm not like, is that the right word? I don't know.
It's tricky, isn't it? Because I can definitely say I enjoyed your book. You can say because it's fiction, but sometimes you'll watch something that's true and you'll kind of forget and then kind of enjoy it and then feel really bad afterwards when you think this wasn't fiction.
I just read over the weekend, is it called All of Us Are Broken by Fiona? Good.
One of my favourite books.
So we're talking about Mira Shahid, to my author friends, and I was reading it, I was like, have you two read this? They're like, no, is it good? I was like, it's amazing. It's so dark. I feel wrong reading it. And then Liv straight away was like, I'll definitely read it. She's like, I'll put it on. And it's so dark. You almost feel a bit like uncomfortable reading it. And I was like, is enjoy it the right word? I don't know, but I definitely couldn't put it down.
Oh, I enjoyed it.
But yeah.
I interviewed Fiona about it, and I'm not going to say what it was, but you've read it, so you'll know. At the end, live on camera, she asked me to make a choice.
Oh God!
No, we're not discussing that, Fiona. Yeah. No. That's not happening. No.
Worst decision to have to make, isn't it?
I was like, we're on camera, Fiona.
That's very, very hard.
It's literally, it's on the shelf somewhere behind me. So I will show that for anyone who hasn't read it yet. Go break yourself. It's bloody brilliant, but it will break you.
Yeah, it's a very tough read. I read that in 2 sittings over the weekend, which I haven't for a while done that. And then just sitting in the sun in my garden with beautiful flowers, and I was reading this like really. I was telling my husband I was make him understand what I'm reading. He's kind of looking at me like, "You okay?" So yeah, no,
I don't think I'll ever be okay ever again after reading that book. Quite frankly, no, it's never ever going to change. But yeah, if that doesn't make you want to read everything Fiona's ever written, nothing will. Yeah,
she's brilliant.
Brilliant, yeah.
Yeah,
she is, and she's so funny with it, and so dark, and the journalism creeps in, and she can see right through your soul when she's asking you things. We've only got just over 5 minutes left.
Oh,
that has absolutely flown. I'm going to look at the notes I made before. I liked the fact that when the friends arrived and they all think they're really, really close. We're going back to your book now. Shake Fiona off. Shake her off. They arrive, and it's that thing that I think really does happen. No matter how long you've been friends with people, you don't necessarily know what's going on in each other's lives, no matter how much you think you know. Yeah. And that was really interesting for me to read and explore, that I'm not the only person who feels like that.
Yeah, I think especially like when you've got those friendships which rely on history, I think like my experience is actually those people know you less because it's kind of lazy, and you don't think you need, like when you meet people when you're a bit older, you have to learn everything about them, so you're quite interested in their lives. Whereas I even found out with your oldest friends, you don't know what jobs they do. That's not relevant. Whereas like a lot of my really close friends now I know through work, I'm really good at whatever job I have. I just keep the friends, leave the job. But I think there is that kind of, you rely so much on history, you don't really make so much effort, and it can, you kind of go, oh well, I know their mum, I know their dad, I know their sisters, but like you're like, well, what do they actually do on day-to-day level? And you don't really know.
No.
I think, yeah, and so much of it is showy. I find as well, like those friends, I think group settings. I mean, I was part of a friendship group for most of my life, and that was kind of my entire world. Whereas now my friendship, I'm in some friendship groups, but they're quite low key. They're like, we met as adults, we are like friends, there's a few of us, but we're not like, oh, you can't go off and do that thing with that one person, or it's not that assumed thing of it's my birthday, therefore I'll be spending it with these people, because that can be really suffocating.
Yeah.
And I think friendship groups they look so lovely and perfect from the outside. I think you have to be a very specific person to get on well in them.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I spend a lot of my time sitting here where I am now interviewing you. I work from home, I sit at home, and I do make an effort to see people, but it's few and far between. And it's not because I don't want to, it's because you just don't. You just kind of, you don't realise, I find, from day to day, I might not have seen someone for 6 months, but it won't feel like 6 months to me.
Yeah, and I'm not hugely like a lot of, I have a friend who I would talk to nearly every day, and she was 40 minutes away. We said the other day, oh, we'll probably see each other every few months. And I thought, God, that sounds quite bad. It sounds like we're not really friends, because every few months sounds like a low. But I know
that's quite normal.
Part of her day, like she has 15-minute long voice notes, so I feel like I know her day-to-day life better than anybody's. But yeah, actually, if I count the amount of times I've met her in person, I don't even know if it'd be that many. I think that's part of like growing up a bit as well, and realizing that like it's not, you can have really busy lives, and it's not a bad friendship just because you're not meeting. Like when I hear people, they say, oh, I've got a standing date every Friday, I think, well, that'd be my idea of hell. Like it would just feel so oppressive to me. I think, which is why friendship groups can be tricky, because you do kind of form those things of, oh, we always see each other on bank holidays, we always go on holiday together, and you kind of stop having any choice in it. Which
I like the idea of that, but again, it's one of those things that sounds really nice, like a cabin in the woods sounds really nice, but is it?
Yeah, I mean, I prefer not having that set up anymore, and having kind of people who know me when I'm older. I think you just change so much, don't you? And it's hard to change with people you've known forever.
Malcolm Hollindrake commented, mums know. Going back to what we were talking about before. Yeah, mums know everything. The amount of things that my kids can't get away with, and it's just really funny seeing the look of shock on the faces. It's really funny. because I just think, sorry.
How old are your kids?
Oh, I say kids, but they're between 14 and 21. So they're
Oh,
14, 18, 19, 21. But yeah,
wow.
so they just kind of think, and I have this running, it's not a running joke, it's an absolutely factual statement, Sophie. I am the most vanilla person that ever lived, never did anything wrong. Nothing to see here. Nothing ever happened. And they all think that, you know, the behaviour is completely shocking. And I just think that's really cute.
Ah, yeah, you kind of have to assume that about your mum, don't you? Like, I don't want to know that part of you.
And they never shall, because there were no phones when I was a child.
Yeah, yeah, that would be better. And I like that that's like with this group, there are phones when they're younger, but they're not a huge part of that. And I think it makes such a difference, it makes it so much
Yeah,
easier.
of course.
I had phone when I was young, but you didn't, not like you do now. Like you still had to log onto your home PC to sit on MSN Messenger, which was my favourite thing ever. And it just makes such a difference. I like writing that time period.
I did like telling the kids about the dial-up modems with the crack. I'd love to be able to make the noise. I can't make the noise, but anyone who knows what I'm talking about is currently hearing the noise in their own head.
And your mum shouting at you when you're doing it and they're on the phone.
Leslie said, all of us are broken is a 5-star from her, and Helen Field's profile K is a really dark mystery read. I've got it, I need to read it. It's just fitting everything in. It's one of those that I loved the institution when I read that, and I've wanted to pick up Profile Case since I got it through the door, and I've just not had a chance yet, which is really frustrating. Have you got anything on your kind of pile that you're dying to get to? Is that too much of an on the spot without thinking about it ahead of time question?
I'm trying to remember what I'm. Do you know what I'm reading at the moment, which I just started last night. You know Charlotte Duckworth. So she's right. But she's written more of like I think it's like a rom-com. And Charlotte Rickson called. Oh my god, what's it called? I can see it on my bedside table over there. It's called The One That Got Away, I think.
Okay.
It's really interesting because the cover is like very romantic. It sounds very rom-commy, but it opens. I mean, this isn't a spoiler because it's the first page. It opens with a suicide bomber about to decide whether they're going to bomb a football stadium. And I was like, wow. I love her writing. I think she's like, I love her psychological thrillers. So interesting to read.
I've got to say, I haven't actually read any yet because I read for the interviews. That is kind of what I do. And anything that, if I've got time to read something else, I will pick up anything that I've not had a chance to look at.
I think you'd really like her. If you like kind of emotional, sort of, she's really, really good at kind of those relationships, and just got some really good concepts. So I'm interested to see, because I've only read a few chapters of this one. It's great already, but it's so not what I was expecting, because I thought it'd be quite a light read because the cover's pink and blue and pretty, and you've got these two silhouettes of people in love, and then you're straight away like, oh, okay, this is like very high stakes. So I'm interested to see how that one pans out.
Right, adding that to my never-ending list. Thank you very much. We have hit 8 o'clock. Would you like to give us a recap of what stays unsaid so people know what to go and it's available to pre-order now in paperback, sorry.
Yes, it is. So it's out next Thursday. It is about a group of friends who get whisked away on a surprise weekend to Dartmoor to have a joint hen do. The problem is that those two brides aren't speaking and don't really want to tell anyone why. And it is set over one weekend with a storm on Dartmoor. And it's out next week.
And I do have to say, you are quite the genius bringing 4 best friends together, and the 2 that are the closest to in the group are the 2 that are surprised because they don't know it's their joint hen weekend. They don't know each other's coming. The other girls don't know that the other women, don't know that they've all, nobody's been speaking for 6 weeks. And what an opening.
Oh, that's good.
You literally drop a bomb walking into this lovely brick house. And what a way to start. Congratulations. Fantastic book, 5 stars, easy.
Oh, thank you.
And I really hope you enjoy publication day and celebrating, and really enjoy writing the next one. And I hope you'll come back and discuss it with us.
I have to, yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been very fun, and thank everyone for watching. It's really nice to meet new people.
Thank you to everyone who's joined us, and thank the internet heavens that everything actually worked tonight. It was great. Thank you so much, Sophie.
All right, thank you. Really nice to meet you.